So I'm going to share you a secret. Since this weekend, I tried my best to find a way to play against this meta. Basically trying to find a way to not play around Kaisa, Yasuo, Azir, Lux, gamble everything on level 7 in 3-6. This is the kind of meta I hate the most, and this is the kind of meta where I try to play like everyone else does. I just lose all my LPs because it just doesn't fit my playstyle. So I decided to try something else, and in fact, I found something very, very cool. I earned 200 LPs with this specific comp, and I'm going to talk about Akshan today. It's probably not the first time you heard about it, it's probably not the first time you've seen someone try it, but not necessarily figuring out how to do it. What I'm going to tell you in this video is that I figured out how to play Akshan, and there will be a part in this video where I will go extremely deep into the details, and I think this will mainly interest people who are Diamond Master or above, because even challengers are not aware of everything I'm going to say. So let's get going. So a couple of things I wanted to show you is basically the stats here. As you can see in my last 50 games, well, 50 games, I didn't play that much actually, but what I want to say is Akshan 3 stars, I've played it 7 times, and 6 times it was the top 4, and 4 times it was the first place. So that's how I earned 200 LP. The second thing I want to show is it happens quite regularly actually that I cannot find Akshan 3, 11 times here. What are the results? Obviously, I have a negative LP, but if you look at that, I still managed to make a good amount of 4th place, and I didn't lose that much whenever I was still stuck with Akshan 2. And I think that proves something very interesting about this comp, is that if you hit Akshan 3, you have high chance, of course, to finish first or finish second, and that's insane. If you don't hit Akshan 3, you can still save a good amount of LP and not finish 8th all the time. And that's one of the strengths, I think, of this comp. But this requires to play very specifically. So to show you the game plan and all the things I wanted to tell you about this comp, the items, the augments and all of that, I'm going to use this guide that I wrote myself on Tacter. I'm going to share also that Tacter is the sponsor of my channel, not just this video, but the channel. And this is why I'm using Tacter, but don't worry, all the guides I'm creating on Tacter are accessible for free for all of you. I put the link in the description, and so whenever you want to play this comp, you can always come back to here and use it as a cheat sheet, for instance. The full comp about Akshan, I've tried with 4 Deadeye and I tried with Freljord and Shurima, and I can tell that Deadeye is completely useless. You just need 2 of them. But this also is because I play this comp in a specific way. For instance, if you have tons of AD items and you can stuff Akshan and Urgot, Akshan and Aphelios, in that case, it's more relevant to play 4 Deadeye with Freljord. But here, I really want to focus on Akshan being the main carry, and after you have only defensive items or AP items, in that case, you want to stuff Lissandra or Azir as your side carries. One of the third thing I want to say about this comp is the most important part of Akshan is the front line, because as you can see, Akshan takes a good amount of time before being able to deal a good amount of damage, and this is the reason why you need an excellent front line that can save you 10 more seconds, 20 more seconds, no matter how much time you need. It's never enough. Also, I really like to use the Freljord front line because it's actually not contested. If you look at Shen and Invoker, if you look at Nasus and Juggernaut, they are extremely contested by the Azir Lux and by Ionia. So here, by trying to get with Bruisers and Freljord, you have a high chance to find Sejuani 2 very, very fast actually. It happens so many times I find Sejuani 2 before I find 4 or 5 Akshan, just because all the 4 costs, Nasus, Shen, even Azir, it's fine if you don't have Azir at first. You can find it later. It's not a problem. I will talk about the items a bit later, but as you can see, I really like to have Runan on Akshan. The reason is because now he can fire 6 bolts during this ultimate, and so that's basically increasing his damage by 50%. That's it. So this is why this is so good. Since you want to reroll for Akshan 3, you want to reroll at level 7. This is very important. Usually at level 7, you can try to find something around Sejuani, Nasus, Shen, but like I said, they might be very, very contested. So one thing I really like to do right now is to kind of play strongboard with 4 bruisers, so Vi, Relecton, Sejuani, and Cho'Gath or Rek'Sai. Everything at 2-star because it's really easy to find them at 2 stars in this meta. And you have a very, very good frontline that can last up to stage 5, let's say. At stage 5, you have to change your frontline because, Vi is cool, but she's kind of useless at this stage. But until there, you can actually have a very, very decent frontline with bruisers. And this is how I like to play my game. At level 7, I will slow roll for Akshan. And I will remove, let's say I have 4 bruisers. I will remove my 4 bruisers if I start to have Nasus 2 or Shen 2. Otherwise, I don't think it's really worth it. Here is just an example of how could be your level 7. One thing you should not try to get is 5 Shurima level 7. I tried it, and I think it's a bait because most of the time you have useless units like Cassiopeia, Thalia, woo! And or if you have Azir and Nasus, it's fine, but they are 1 star. So the buff of Shurima on 1-star units are not really that great. You prefer to have a 2-star frontline with bruisers. It's much, much more valuable. So before I get into the very, very detailed part, like I think most challengers will learn a few things, I wanted to talk about this newsletter I do every week where I send to you the top 5 comps you need to play if you want to climb fast. The way I do this is to give you exactly the comps you need to focus on without you having time to, I don't know, check Soju's streams that takes maybe 10 hours before understanding the meta, or going into different websites, doing some kind of analysis. I know you don't have the time, you just want to play the game. And this is the goal of this newsletter. So subscribe, it's completely free. Every week I send you top 5 comps, and then you can enjoy the game. So there are a couple of things I wanted to share with you, and I'm going to use this board. Like let's say I'm facing a typical Azir Lux, and I'm playing Akshan. So I have a couple of things I want to show. I have a clip just after to show you a bit how it goes. First of all, the thing I want to say is very important for the stuff for Akshan. When you have only a little bit of attack speed, so just Renan, nothing else. So you don't have Ginzu, you don't have RFC, you don't have I don't know what. When you don't have mana, so you don't have Hand of Justice, you don't have Trinity Force, Akshan will use its ability right after the Freljord Breeze removes the armor of everyone. And the timing is very important because that way, Akshan can literally one-shot the tank because the tank will lose its armor from Freljord. If you have Hand of Justice, if you have Trinity Force, if you have too much attack speed, or if Akshan is taking damage so he has more mana, then he will kind of waste his ability on a tank that will have full armor and you will not be able to kill the tank. That's the first thing I want to say, and this is why I really don't like Hand of Justice on Akshan. I really don't like Ginzu on Akshan. That's the first thing I think most challengers are not aware of about Akshan. The second thing I really like to do with Akshan is not to position on the corner, except when I need to be safe. Let's say I face rogues or I face some kind of Javan, and if I put, for instance, Akshan here, Javan will stun my Akshan, and I don't want that, obviously. So I really like to put slightly in the middle, but not in the center, more like here or here, here or here. It's very simple because the thing is most people, at least in high elo, most people put their strongest tank on the sides. This is normal, this is how you should play, because this is exactly like where they take the most damage, and so this is where they can tank the best and buy time. This is basic positioning. So what I like to do is to put Akshan here, because in this place, he will target Azir, but before targeting Azir, he will touch Swain, let's say, here, or Garen, right? And since these units are usually not that tanky, they will necessarily die in the first cast, and a few shots will also go to Azir. Obviously, this is not enough to one-shot Azir, but that's a good amount of damage, and meaning that on the second cast, you are kinda guaranteed that Azir and Lux will die. And sometimes, if they don't really think about positioning, they might make some mistake and do something like this. And if they do something like this, I mean, fine, you one-shot Azir on the first cast. And that's actually a great opportunity. I won many fights by one-shotting Azir or Lux on the first cast just because they didn't position properly. And this is actually a very good trick. So I really like to position Akshan more like here rather than on the corner, here or here. This doesn't really matter when you face, for instance, Yasuo and Kaisa because they move a lot. So the targeting is kind of random. But overall, this is extremely powerful positioning. And the third thing I observed is a trick with Runan. The fact that Runan now works with Akshan's ultimate, most likely everyone is aware of that. But there's one thing that people are not aware of, is the targeting of the Runan. So again, I go very deep into the details, but this is really important. So whenever Akshan is targeting someone, let's say he's targeting Garen, right? This is for the basic auto. The Runan will have a cone like this. And he will try to find the nearest target possible within this cone. So here is Nasus. So the Runan will go on Nasus. This is normal behavior. If Nasus dies, then the Runan will go either on Teemo or on Talia. This is actually cool because that means that you can target backline units before you target, let's say, Jarvan. For instance, if Jarvan stays there, the Runan will not attack Jarvan because I don't know what's the angle of the cone, but for sure the cone is not like this. So that's why there are a lot of times the Runan will target the backline units instead of targeting another tank. Okay, so now you understand this, now you know this. There's one thing that's really cool with Akshan Ultimate, is his target is Azir. Alright? So the cone is like this. The cone. During the Akshan Ultimate, what does it mean? It means the bolt will attack Lux. Even if the original ult, let's say, is intercepted by Jarvan. So it's actually Jarvan who takes the shot, but since the target is Azir, the Runan will target Lux, because Lux is the closest target to Azir within the cone. And this is very powerful. I'll show you a few clips, and you will see by yourself, you will understand immediately why I'm saying this. And this is why I love Runan, because many times, even if the shots are interrupted by a tank, I can still kill carries in the backline thanks to the Runan. And this is so powerful, and I think a lot of people are starting to discover, at least the top players, but for sure not the majority of the players. So let's have a look at this clip multiple times. The first thing I want you to realize is to see when the Freljord breeze is happening and how Akshan is actually profiting from this immediately. So let's get away with it. Here I'm playing against Ionia. It's a good matchup because a lot of times Kaisa will dash and being the furthest enemy and just get one shot. It doesn't happen all the time, but as you can see, the Freljord breeze happened right before Akshan uses its ultimate. Then the second thing I want to show is try to see the bolt of the Runan when Akshan will cast. So he will target Karma because Karma is the furthest enemy, but look at the bolt going on Kaisa. And Kaisa is losing like 60% HP. Just because Kaisa was closest to Karma, and even if Karma didn't get touched by the Runan. And if we do it again, here, he will target the Karma again, but since now it's Ahri the closest, so Ahri will take like 80% damage, and then after get finished by something else. And this is exactly like I was saying, there's a cone with the Runan that has a very tight, I feel like tight angle. And this is how you can abuse it with Runan on Akshan. And I think this is why Runan is actually BIS. And I would even say, if you have Radiant Runan, I mean, if I had a Radiant Runan, I would have one-shot Kaisa, I would have one-shot Ahri. And I think this is why Radiant Runan is the best Radiant item for Akshan. So now let's go back to the usual stuff, meaning the augments and the legends. So when you play this comp, usually you go with Israel Legend. I'm going to explain a bit later why. But let's say at 3-2 or at 4-2, you still want to have some cool generic augments. I'm thinking of Unified Resistance. You thinking about Harm Assist or Cybernetic Leech, because you don't have sustain on Akshan, and sometimes he can take some splash damage or some rogues can come and try to kill him. So having some healing is never bad on him, but not as an item. You don't want Bloodthirster on Akshan for sure. Then on the gold, one I really love above anything else is a cut above at 2-1. If you have this, it gives you Deathblade, that's BIS for Akshan, and you can also farm gold. So yeah, of course, I take that every day. Shurima's Legacy, I mean, you can just look at the win rates here. It's insane. It's a broken augment. And you actually play Shurima, so you want to play it. And Shurima Crest. This is not mandatory, but I feel like when you have Shurima Crest, you can activate 5 Shurima at level 7, And I feel like this is a good power spike that makes you feel very comfortable, so you don't feel you need to rush to push level 8 to 5 to put 5 Shurima. Because remember, you have to spend a good amount of time at level 7, so being able to be more comfortable at level 7 is actually a good bonus for you. Then 3 other augments at gold I really like to see. You have my sword. You need to have a lot of swords for this comp, so having one more sword, you will be happy, and having more attack damage is even better. Glacial Breeze, I really like this one. It helps your tank more. It helps your team attack faster. Yeah, just better overall. It goes very well with Shurima. They kind of go together at the same time. And all that shimmers is nice at first stage, because you can see like you have a lot of a very good average place. And there is one item that's particularly broken on Akshan, is Draven's Axe. You can stack it very easily. It gives a lot of stats. It's a death blade that can give you gold every 100 attacks, so very powerful. And finally, for the prismatic cybernetic leech, very valuable. Overwhelming Force gives you death blade in Infinity Edge. That's 2 items out of the 3 items you want on Akshan. I think the stats here are not that great because people don't really play Akshan yet, but once people start to catch up this comp, I think this win rate should go higher. And Shurima Crown, it gives you Akshan, can be a great way to start the game. Only downside is that it gives you Bloodthirster, and I don't think you really need a Bloodthirster. You can give it to Nasus later, but other than that, it's not really useful. So about the items, I told you, for me, the BIS is Runan, Deathblade, Infinity Edge. I don't think you can find something better than that, except trying to include a Giant Slayer somewhere. Then after, you have Guardbreaker. The fact that Akshan often attacks the front line first, and most front line has shield or some kind of shield, it's really easy to have the bonus damage on Guardbreaker, especially if you have Infinity Edge, Guardbreaker, Runan. It also gives a good amount of crit chance, so you have more chance to crit on your ultimate, and that's even better. What I really don't like is anything that's below B or B tier. Hand of Justice, I told you, it makes you not use Freljord properly, and I feel like that's a waste of one ability. Gunblade, Bloodthirster, Bloodthirster, because it's such a troll item on Akshan that I don't think is good. Edge of Knife, same. Quicksilver, same. Last Whisper is kind of useless because you have Freljord. Ginzu, RFC. I know that Akshan can stack Ginzu with his ultimate, but what's the point? You attack faster, but you kill no one. Not interested. I prefer to attack slower and one-shot units. So I think Ginzu is a big bait that you should never use on Akshan. You can use as a transition for Akshan, meaning that maybe you want to play Aphelios. I'm fine with that. But if you want to play Akshan carry, hyper carry, it's never Ginzu, RFC, Quicksilver, Bloodthirster, Gunblade. Oh, forget about these items. Sniper's Focus, in my opinion, is the best one item you can have on Akshan, because it just like helps you to one-shot a very long distance target. So the thing is, Sniper's Focus got nerfed, but I think it's a buff for Akshan, because in that way, now he doesn't get an insane amount of attack speed, so he will still synchronize himself with the Freljord breeze. And I think that's actually nice. And after, you can have Collector. That's nice if you have in 2-1. That way you can farm some gold. And Trinity Force is nice, but like I told you, I don't like the fact that it gives mana. The other part I really like about all items, it gives a good amount of cool defensive stuff. And like I said, frontline is more important than anything else. I prefer to have a 2-star frontline and a 1-star Akshan rather than a 1-star frontline and 2-star Akshan. Same goes with 2-star frontline and 2-star Akshan rather than a weak frontline and 3-star Akshan. It's the same. So Hullbreaker, Trickster's Glass, Eternal Winter, Anima Visage, Ranger's Omen, all of them are valuable. Not broken. You can have maybe something better, but they're good. They're good. Radiant items, Renan's Hurricane, I told you, you can literally one-shot Azir and Lux on the first cast. So yes, every day. Deathblade, because it gives a lot of AD, so very powerful. And Guardbreaker, because the Radiant version of Guardbreaker can give up to 50% increase of damage, and that's really good. It got nerfed for a reason. And then finally, Shimmer Skills item, Draven Axe. Very, very easy to stack with Akshan. Okay, so let's talk about Israel. I mean, the legends. So Israel, I'm gonna be honest, it's hard not to play in this meta without Israel. It's not as broken as Draven, right before he got nerfed immediately. But the fact that it gives you a lot of items, it kind of ensure you to have a very good stuff for Akshan, while also having a very, very strong front line with a lot of stuff. So that's why I like Israel. On stage 3-2, it gives you a bit of gold. I mean, a good amount of gold. So it helps you to push level 6, roll down aggressively for a 2-star front line with only bruisers, for instance. So Shogat, Rek'Sai, Vi, and Renekton. And then after you have 1 or 2 action plus a 2-star Ashe, and you're very, very strong for stage 3. In fact, you can rebuild your econ easily thanks to this amount of gold. And then after push level 7 and have your slow roll and try to switch useless tanks to Sejuani, Nasus, and so on. For me, the only other potential legend that can get close to this is Ornn, because we saw that you have a fair amount of Ornn items that are good for this comp. And that's why I think that these augments are actually valuable if you want to force action all the time. Here you also get a bit of gold as well as choosing your component. So if you prefer to have your item that you really want to have, you have more chance to have it with Ornn rather than Israel. But overall, I think Israel is still superior to Ornn most of the time. So at the end of the day, I think Akshan has the potential to really shift the meta, because Akshan is not the only comp that can very perform well if you understand how to play. I've seen other 3-cost comps. Obviously, everyone knows about Darius, but you have Vel'Koz as well. Multicaster is not dead. Tristana is not dead. You have a lot of small niches there and there. And I think people will start to understand that it's much more consistent to play these, let's say, A-tier comps and not S-tier, but being not contested and finding the units mostly all the time, I would say. And because of that, I think people will start to stop forcing Azir, Lux, Ionia all the games, and little by little we will see the meta spreading, widening into more and more niches, and I think Akshan will be the first step into this meta. Maybe I'm delusional, maybe I can see the future, but anyway, what I want to say is make sure to subscribe to my newsletter, because I sent one newsletter yesterday and I talked about Akshan already in this newsletter. And I will keep on doing this kind of stuff, so you really want to subscribe to this free newsletter. On the other hand, you can also watch this video where I talk about Varvik and how you can play this comp if you have Ravenous Hunter Augment. See you at the top of the ladder.